Hello everybody, welcome to the Daily Sip. My name is Oliver. My mission is to make you excited about organic Japanese green tea, and today what we're gonna dive into is into the Fukamushi Murasaki Sencha. So today we're gonna dive into one specialty and one tea which I personally found 3 months ago, and this tea kind of caught my heart by storm because this tea is a sweet Fukamushi Sencha. So let's dive into this tea today. So what we're gonna dive into is a little bit what this tea is about, how this tea is having its beautiful flavor, and then we're gonna definitely taste it. But let's have a look at the first part of the tea, how the tea is actually looking. So let's have a look at this one here. When you look at the small leaves, you might think, okay, this is cut off directly out of a tea bag and it's just an awful tea, but this is actually how Fukamushi tea looks like. A Fukamushi is a deep steam tea, and when the deep steaming is applied, so meaning that when the tea are harvested, normally you bring them in a steam bath in Japan, and then if the tea leaves are a little bit brittle like this one here, then we definitely talk about the Fukamushi, or so-called deep steamed tea, where they just use or to just apply the double amount of time to the tea leaves in the steam bath than with the asamushi, the short, or the futsumushi, the normal steamed green tea. And what actually happens is that the tea cells get a little bit weaker and then they break easier, and also at the same time what it does, it actually oxidizes a little bit the polyphenol, so brings down the bitter particles of the tea and bringing out the more sweeter part of the teas. And this was actually a method which was developed after the Second World War, when the Shizuoka tea industry was confronted with the fact that the USA was not a client for green tea or Japanese green tea anymore, because during the World War Japan and the USA were in war, and after the war still there were some big tensions between these countries. Even though Japan capitulated after the Second World War, still there was this point where the Japanese tea industry was not able to export to one of its main resources, or one of its main consumers of green tea. And then they tried to also increase the consumption within Japan, but the problem with Japanese people is they're a little bit more kind of on the sweet umami side, so they had to find out a method which was bringing the more savory parts and the more sweeter parts of the tea in front, and then that was exactly the time when the Fukamushi steaming method was developed. So when we look at the tea, brittle, not very beautiful, quite small, quite a little bit dusty leaves, but not bad at all. Because when we just taste later the tea, when we already smell at the tea leaves, we get a nice grassy but also a nice sweet flavor profile. So this tea is from the south of Japan. So Fukamushi style Sencha was mainly used in Shizuoka, and also Shizuoka is one of the center of Fukamushi tea in Japan. But it is not only used for the lower quality leaves. That's how they brought up the lower quality leaves to a higher standard and then being accepted by the Japanese tea consumer. But what is also happening nowadays is that even good or very high quality green teas are deep steamed and bringing out more of this flavor profile of this kind of sweet tea. This tea is mainly made out of the Yutaka Midori. The Yutaka Midori is by itself a little bit more astringent tea, but by being processed through the Fukamushi style Sencha production process, that's how actually this tea is made a very sweet, a very flavorful profile. Around 90 to 95% of this tea is Yutaka Midori. Only a smaller part is the Samidori Sencha, or Samidori Fukamushi Sencha in this case. It is a very sweet and very smooth tea. So sometimes Mr. Kawaji, which is producing this tea, he's actually using a little bit more, a little bit less of different teas just to add on to this Yukata Midori. And this year it is the Samidori, which is quite of a fine sweet tea. And now let's dive directly into the tea. So we are here talking about the tea, which is grown at an elevation of 250 meters above sea level, so a normal level, I would say, for Japan. When you talk about mountain tea, you're around 450 to 500 meters, and if you have sea level, then you are at 0. But this one here is around more or less in the middle of the spectrum, so I would say it's a middle altitude tea, and this tea is also shaded for around 10 days. And what we can do is we just use, here in my case, I use 65 degrees Celsius water, which is around 150, 155 Fahrenheit, which I'm using for this tea. And now I'm very curious to see how the first steeping is. Fukamushi style Sencha, very quick tea, very fast tea, 40 seconds is the time which is suggested by the farmer. So that's exactly what we're gonna apply here. Good. So I'm using a Fukamushi style Kyushu here with the Fukamushi style Kyushu teapot, which I am using in this case. So you can really see that this teapot has a strainer all around. So it's a very, very easy way to brew Fukamushi. The problem about Fukamushi is, as the tea leaves are so small, they kind of can, or they're able to clog your normal green tea teapot. So if you're a little bit into this more savory, sweet particle, kind of sweet tasting tea, then I suggest you definitely go directly for a Fukamushi style teapot. Then you can cover both parts. Once you, on the one hand, you have the Sencha, or the normal Asamushi Sencha with the longer needles. This you can brew with this teapot, and also Fukamushi. Meanwhile, the normal Kyushu teapot, which is no strainer, just maybe handmade holes in it, then you are a little bit more blocked if you're using a Fukamushi style Sencha. Good. But let's dive directly into the tea. So you can see a very beautiful color already. The second steeping will definitely show us more color. This we're gonna do in the next step. But let's just have a first sip of this tea in the first brewing. It's kind of a mix of sweet banana peel together with some mango flavor, a little bit of pineapple. No astringency, no kind of tingling on the top of the tongue. So a very beautiful, very sweet tea, which I personally came to love at the first sip. It is a tea which convinced me pretty much already in the beginning. So we have a lot of sweetness, a lot of beautiful kind of flavor profile, which just covers very broadly this kind of a fruitiness. There's a little bit of a savoriness with it. There's more of a full-bodiedness, which is also said to be linked to the Fukamushi style. There's just a small grassiness swinging with it, but otherwise it's very fruity, very full flavored. So this is also a beautiful example of a high-grade tea, which was then used for a Fukamushi style Sencha by a sweet tea with a little bit of stringency, pushing through the Fukamushi style Sencha process, and then becoming a very smooth, flavorful and round tea. But let's see how the second brewing of this tea is. And here we're just gonna apply some seconds for the leaves. Normally you can leave it in just for around 20 seconds. We will lose it, use it, and use it right away. Use the loose tea right away. And here is very beautiful. This is now a very beautiful example. I'll show it to you right away. So trying to get out all the water. And this is just impressive. First brewing, second brewing. So you can really see the color difference of this tea. It's just amazing how the color changes. And the second brewing of the Fukamushi style Sencha is definitely the brewing which is the most colorful. But let's see in taste. So let's have a first sip again. And now the second. It is still a beautiful, beautiful tea. Now with the second brewing, I must say that you have a little bit more of the refreshing, a little bit more the citrusy parts which are coming through the tea. Here, definitely in the first one, with a high dominance of these fruity, sweet particles, and the second one, it's just a little bit showing more, a little bit of its grassy flavor profile, a little bit of a tingling on the top of the tongue. So you have a little bit of the astringency of the tea which is showing up now, but the color is just amazing. When you look at this color difference, this is just incredible between the first and the second brewing, and this is really how Fukamushi lives. And what the second brewing then shows is a little bit more of this grassy, a little bit more of this vegetal edamame flavor profile, a little bit more of a citrusy flavor profile, but all in all still quite sweet, quite astonishing by its sweet flavor profile, but definitely full fruit first one. And here we have kind of a mix of a citrusy, fruit and vegetal flavor profile. So this is the deep dive which I did now on this tea, and definitely a tea which is also changing a lot in its facets from brewing to brewing. I think you can even do around 4 or 5 brewings with this one here without that it loses a lot of taste, and definitely an amazing tea to discover. Fukamushi style Sencha is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated teas in Japan, and I think this is a world you should definitely once dive into if you ever have the chance. Try it out for yourself and taste it and feel and see for yourself what is actually your absolute favorite when it comes to Fukamushi style Sencha. So this was this for today, and I hope you like this one too. Just a simple tasting of one tea, but I hope you like this too. And if you ever have a question or you want to leave a comment, please feel free to do so. I'm more than happy to answer them. See you and bye bye. See you next week. Was lovely to have you this week. Bye.